Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. My name is Ian, and I'm joined by Jen, Ken virtually, and Paul. And together, we're your marketing guides. Imagine if there was a way to get your brand in front of prospective customers who have visited your website but haven't filled in a form or called you or taken an action. And imagine if they viewed a particular product or service page and you can influence them even when they're off your website with messaging to support the value you offer. It sounds impossible and a little too good to be true, but it's actually very real and top brands use it all the time. It's called retargeting or retargeted advertising. Sometimes even remarketing is a term used pretty interchangeably. Whatever you wish to call it, it is a hidden secret weapon in your marketing toolbox. In today's episode, the marketing guides are going to help answer what retargeting is, its benefits, and how you can start leveraging this low-cost secret weapon right away to help your business grow sales and conversions. So let's jump in and explore this topic that can radically help your business. So I'm going to start with Jen. Jen, I think a good place, to level set is to ask, what is retargeting?
Yeah, sure. Retargeting. So whether you've heard of retargeting or remarketing before, if you've been online, you probably experienced it. And what that is you've got those little ads that follow you around. So say you've gone to Amazon, you've gone to a website, you've looked at something to purchase, let's say, and decided not to purchase it. And so for weeks upon end, you feel like you're being followed around the internet with these ads showing up for the very thing that you were looking at. So that is retargeting. It doesn't always have to be that invasive or that, crazy making, but in a sense, that is retargeting. So you've gone to a website, you haven't made the purchase, and the ads are, in a sense, following you around. Now I have to say, in all the research that we've looked at, that has always been the phrase, right? Like a user comes to your website, does not purchase. And so retargeting is sort of pitched as the way to help the user down the funnel, trying to get you back to the website. But here's the thing, and maybe we can park this for later if this shows up in the questions later. But sometimes it happens where you actually do purchase the thing, and then you get served the ads anyways. And so I know that can be a little maddening, right? Like, I already bought it, So, but anyways, that is, in a nutshell, 101 level retargeting.
I love it. Thanks. That was a great explanation, Jen. And yeah, just like you were saying, how sometimes it can not work properly, where people, actually do the action you want them to do, and then you hit them. You're continually hitting them with the same message. Businesses that are doing it well can actually, if somebody buys something from you as a business or hires you as a service in a particular area, you can, if you're doing it well and smartly, you can then place in front of them kind of affinity products, cross-sell products, if they, and even if it's a product or a service, but if it's a product and they buy the product and there's an accessory to it, then that's a brilliant way to, hey, did you, here's this widget that goes along with the gadget you got,
Yes. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And the next question is going to be for Ken, and we have a recorded message from Ken. But the question is, why do companies need retargeting, and isn't getting someone to your website enough? So that's the question I posed to the virtual Ken.
Hey, this is Ken. Yeah, so companies really do need to think about retargeting, and the reason is because only about 4% of people who visit your website are going to convert on that first visit. Most people are, when they first come to a website, they're literally just looking to gather information and, to help them start to make a better decision. They're looking for somebody who can solve their problem. And so from that perspective, it's absolutely critical. Most people, when they hit your website, they may never come back. So, part of good website design, obviously, is to make sure that they they want to stick on your website. They want to spend time and learn more about your business. But aside from that, retargeting is a way to get them back on your website. And so it's really, really a critical thing to do, especially if you have a longer customer journey or buyer cycle where there are more steps and it takes longer for somebody to make a decision. So, remarketing for restaurants is probably not as critical. Remarketing for emergency services like emergency plumbing, certainly can be beneficial, but it may not be as helpful in the remarketing journey because people are looking to make a fast decision. And so they may contact the first business that gets in contact with them. And because they've got a critical problem that needs to be solved. So, but most other businesses really could benefit from retargeting or remarketing, as we call it. And that is because, like I said, most people don't convert the first time they visit your website.
All right, that was a good explanation. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about what Ken said too is that there's certain industries, even B2B versus B2C, where sometimes it has greater application. But I think part of like with any kind of marketing tool, there's creative ways to leverage something. So, if you're a high-end restaurant and you want to get people back to you, you could certainly use retargeting to draw them back, and it's a very efficient and cost-effective way because you're only targeting the people. You can even retarget people on a list, right? So I won't go too deep into that because I think we'll cover some other things later on. But Paul, can you in layman's terms share how retargeting, like we've talked about what retargeting is, but how does it actually work?
Without getting technical?
Well, in layman's, and then if we want to delve deeper, certainly.
Well, yeah, certainly. One thing I want to say real quick, Ken was using the term remarketing, and remarketing and retargeting a lot of times are used interchangeably, just to avoid any confusion there. So, in order for it to work, it does require some upfront work that you have to put in place. You're going to need some kind of tracking code on the website or the landing pages that you're driving people to. And I guess first, let's talk about how you define a conversion, because generally, if your goal is newsletter signups and someone signs up for your newsletter, that's a conversion. And a lot of times retargeting or remarket, it's defined as retargeting people that haven't converted. But that goes back to define a conversion. If someone signs up for a newsletter, that's a conversion if that's what you want them to do, and you do want them to do that, but that doesn't mean you're not going to retarget them. I tend to look at it as someone that hasn't purchased, because if someone signs up for a newsletter, that's great, but that doesn't make me money. So, if someone lands on a website, you're driving Travis, someone clicks on a paid ad, and they go to the landing page and they don't complete an action, they don't call, and this is where you have to track all this stuff so you know what's going on. If they don't call or they don't fill out a form, well, then you put them into a remarketing list, and then you target that list. This goes back to what Jen was saying. Don't want to get too technical here, about they purchase the product, service, whatever, and then they keep getting these ads. Well, you have to set your audience window. There's a lot of things on the back end you can do to prevent that from happening. You have to kind of know what your sales cycle is. Mm-hmm. But it's, in layman's terms, it's really just people that haven't purchased or perform the conversion action that you want them to, and you put them into an audience, a remarketing audience, and you target them with specific ads.
Awesome.
Was that
Awesome.
simple enough? Was that
Yeah.
layman terms enough?
Yeah, no,
Well,
you did
I've
great,
got a
Paul.
question there, though.
Yeah.
Like when you say the sales cycle, so the things, so I can understand, retargeting for something that I need quite often. But think about things that you buy once every few years. Think about, say you bought. I mean, Amazon does everything now, right? Say you bought a lawnmower, say you bought a toilet seat, say you bought a curtain rod, say you bought a bookshelf. You're not buying those things every month. So when you say sales cycle, is it as soon as someone let's go with bookshelf. As soon as someone purchases the bookshelf, I guess that the retargeting should automatically go off because there's no window of time that makes sense for retargeting to happen in that case for that product, unless, like Ian was saying, unless now you're talking about like bookends or different accoutrements you can put on that bookshelf, or now you need an armchair, that kind of thing. So when you say sales cycle, is it that tough to sort of turn off an ad based on when the actual item was purchased?
It requires a little bit of sophistication in your setup. You would have to have a way to know that they perform this action, and it can be a pain to set up and get working correctly, and that's why a lot of times it doesn't happen. So you can set your audience time limits. I'll get into the whole sales cycle thing, but back to what Ian was saying. Okay, so let's say someone buys a lawnmower. Well, they probably need other lawn tools. So that goes back to what Ian was saying about the cross-selling. Now, let's say you're selling an expensive product that has a long sales cycle. And on average, your sales cycle is, let's say, 3 months. So you would want your audience limit to probably be 90 days. And after 90 days, that person, and this is the simple way to do it, whether they purchased or not, they're removed from that audience. That's the simple way to do it. The more complicated way to do it is to actually track the purchases. And when someone makes that purchase, then they are removed from that retargeting audience and put into another one if that's appropriate.
I see. I see what you mean by a lot of the work on the back end. I mean, it's enough to set up an ad campaign, to be actually, you're kind of doing double the work on this, and you have to really know your customer and the purchase, the purchase cycle and the whole bit, really, in order to have this be very effective. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, I think it would.
Yeah, and one of the big things where there's a disconnect is that a lot of businesses, they'll hire someone to do their advertising or retargeting, right? Like maybe one of us, to do different marketing, different aspects of their marketing. But depending on the type of business, there may not be a proper feedback loop to us as the people controlling their retargeting campaigns, or any marketing campaigns for that matter, where we actually have visibility in who has become a customer. Right? Like I see this a lot in the dentistry field, where if there's no kind of CRM connection, if there's no connection with their practice management software or anything like that, we have very little visibility into when somebody actually becomes a customer. Like we can see when they book an appointment, so that's helpful. We can see if they download a document, that's helpful. Those are different types of actions, but yeah, like actually becoming a customer for a service, I see that as a problematic area because the loop isn't closed. So it's hard for the team managing the remarketing to be able to say, oh, this person is no longer shouldn't be getting these ads anymore. And I think that's why sometimes we'll get into this a little bit later on, but I think that's sometimes why businesses keep it at a very high level, and it's more about brand exposure. So somebody's come to your website, they're interested, they found you, and when they leave your website, you want to keep that brand exposure going because it takes 7 plus 12 plus, I don't know what the number is nowadays, but I know it used to be 7 brand exposures, right, until somebody was ready to trust your business enough to move forward. And so yeah, it's a way of keeping your brand visible while they're off your website. But
yeah, that's a good point about the the integration, because a lot of times, the service area business may be using a piece of software for scheduling or estimating, and then that company realized that they're leaving some money on the table, and they basically try to throw a CRM on top of it, but it's limited, and the scheduling or estimating software doesn't integrate with anything. I've seen that. I won't name names, but the integration is very limited, and sometimes there is no way to close that loop, as Ian said. Sometimes it just logistically cannot be done.
Yeah.
I think it just in how you started off that conversation too, Paul, you talked about conversions. I would even suggest that, as a company explores this idea of retargeting, you might even, unless you're just doing like easy kind of plug and play brand exposure retargeting, which is pretty easy to implement, right? If they visit any page on my website, I want my brand to pop up when they leave my website. That's very easy to implement. But I would even suggest that even before the conversion discussion, like stepping back and saying, what is our plan? What's our goal for this? Because again, that will help feed, which platform you're going to be retargeting on. And then of course that will lead into the conversion discussion. But without knowing what your actual goals are, you might be actually presenting your brand or the offer on the wrong platform. So you might get diminished results even that way. Next question for Jen. Do you need to be doing other types of advertising to make retargeting worthwhile?
Technically, no. But if you think about the retargeting ad being triggered once you leave the website, if you back up, the more people that come to your website can be served the retargeting ads. So how are you going to get more people to your website? So that's where the other forms of advertising could come in. So social media advertising, that kind of thing. So you always got to think about like if the trigger is leaving the site, then I want to get as many people to the site so more people can leave the site, so then more people can see the ads, so that the idea being more people will convert. So it's a numbers game for sure. But if you're just getting into it, I would get your head around the retargeting first. And then as you start to see that working, or you start to get more comfortable with it, then you can start to, really pour on the other advertising. If you're doing other advertising and starting the retargeting, don't stop what you're doing as in favor of the retargeting. Just know that it can go hand in hand, and as well, you don't have to be doing it in order to start retargeting. Clear as mud there for you.
Yeah. No, and the one thing I just thought of while you were talking there, the one thing that people should know is that in order to retarget, you do have to set up an advertising profile on whatever platform you want to do the retargeting. So if it's Google, you'd have to set up an ad account, or if it's Facebook, you'd have to set up ads on Facebook. In order to do that, it doesn't mean you need to do any other kind of advertising on there. You can just do the retargeting, but there is some setup involved in that.
Is it the same thing in it? So if you're not talking about retargeting, or we're talking about a typical or regular ad, does Google really make sure everything's all firing well with your website in order to be serving the retargeting ads as well?
I'll be interested in what Paul has to say about this too. But I mean, Google doesn't care to some level, because they're happy enough to be getting ad revenue regardless of what's happening after the ad revenue. That's just one comment. And I have an example. I took over, and the reason I took over the dental client, or the reason we won their advertising spend, in order, the management of their advertising spend, was because they asked us to do an audit. We did an audit, and we actually found that their ads were performing wonderfully well. The prior agency was giving wonderful reports on here's how many impressions and clicks and click-through rate, and this was before conversions were really a thing in Google Ads. Like, it wasn't really connected that way a while back. But when we started to dig deeper into what web pages the ads were being sent to, because that was part of our audit, we actually found that none of the web pages existed anymore. So they were spending thousands and thousands of dollars every single month, and we couldn't even know like how far back this went, but we knew it was for months. So they were spending, we think they lost at least $10,000 in ad spend that was going nowhere. And so so that's pretty important to and I guess my point in saying that is that Google did not flag that. Like it didn't say, hey, advertiser, you're sending ads to a web page that doesn't exist. Now Google ads are a lot smarter now, and there are some things where it'll say, you know, we've stopped serving this ad because there's a problem, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more sophisticated now. But yeah, you know, Google's there, especially with ads. They want you to be successful because you'll continue to spend more and more and more money. But their primary job is to grow your ad spend as a business. So they're not as careful with your ad spend as you would be as a business. Paul, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, any advertising platform will offer you guidance designed to make them more money. I mean,
it's absolutely true.
That's just the way it is. And, you know, back to your point, yeah, Google Ads actually is better about that. If you have a landing page that's not working, you will see a red banner, or within the ad itself, it'll say it's not serving the ads because the destination is not working.
Yeah.
So they do that now, but you have to set up your conversions and your tracking properly. So they'll all offer you guidance on how to do that, but you can set up conversion tracking and you can set up conversion tracking correctly based on what you want to achieve. So all these platforms will give you general guidance on, and it will work to a point, but it may not be as detailed or give you the detailed data that you're looking for if you don't understand how it works and how to really set it up.
Yeah, again, Google Ads is far more sophisticated now than it was, but even last year, a great example of how their recommendations were guiding customers wrong is that Google has like a recommendations tab basically in Google Ads, and it would say it would score your account. So every month your score drops unless you either accept or dismiss their recommendations. So if your clients are going into their account, what's that?
That's annoying.
So absolutely. So and what was really annoying is some clients were very active in their accounts, like just, hey, what are these guys doing? How's it going? And so even between our reporting cycle, they would go into their account and they would look at stuff and they would see this recommendation thing, and it was down to like 79%. They'd be like, what's going on? And we're like, we actually don't agree with what Google's saying, and here's why. And because Google used to, again, it's changed a little bit because they've changed their ad campaign structures. But one of the things Google always used to say is change your keyword phrases from phrases to the term, Paul.
Broad match.
Thank you, broad match.
They still do that.
They do, except the campaigns are smarter now. So sometimes it makes sense to do that. But if you did that and you were a plumber and you were looking for leaky toilet as a keyword for people entering, and they just put in and it was a broad match, and they put in the word, new toilet or something they were looking for at Home Depot, that would actually present your ad. And so you'd be spending enormous amounts of money on ads that weren't doing anything, right? So you still needed to be really savvy, and you still do today. Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far off topic here, but going to what you said about the broad match, you should never start a Google Ads campaign with broad match. The thing everything in ads is AI driven, okay? And that means it has to learn. So after you have been running a campaign for a while and you've done some optimization, after a few months, 6 months, whatever, it might make sense to go to broad match because you've given the system time to learn. But now, because everything is so AI focused, they've taken a lot of control away from us, and they're using AI to make a lot of these decisions. Even though you may still be able to do some of these things, it's going to be problematic because they're still going to use their AI algorithm to do things. And anytime you make a change now because of the AI learning, you should really give the system 2 weeks to learn. And Google will tell you that. Now they've come out with these performance max campaigns, which I won't get into that, but it's a broad spectrum campaign. But now with that, they're telling you anytime you make a change, now you have to give the system 4 to 6 weeks to learn from that change. So basically, you're paying Google for their system to learn with the Performance Max campaign.
Thanks.
Yeah. But when those are working, they can work really well. But you're right. It takes time and it takes know-how for sure.
Yeah. After 3 months of spending money with no results, the system will probably learn. And you'll start getting, and that's, that's Google doesn't phrase it like that, but that's basically what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, very important thing I have to do here. There we go. My child needed a password to do their studying for their exam.
It's all good. It's all good.
I should have waited until I asked you to start Ken's next video, Paul. But here's a question for Ken. Retargeting campaigns are often just brand exposure, which we alluded to earlier, where you're trying to get out in front of visitors again. But are there other even more powerful ways to leverage retargeting, Ken?
So retargeting can really take a couple of different forms. A lot of people look at retargeting as just a way to continue to build brand awareness and help people recognize the business as they're moving through the buyer's journey. So as they're hitting, different websites, your ads might be popping up in front of them. The key is the ads can be different. And, a lot of people, they simply just think about brand when they're running remarketing or retargeting ads. Really, I think the better thing to do is to look at running different types of ads. So yes, certainly running ads that emphasize and highlight the brand and make it, just improve the brand visibility and awareness. But second, consider using customer testimonials as part of your remarketing or retargeting ads, because again, that's helping build that know, like, and trust beyond just the know, which is largely the branding. You want to start to get to the trust, which can be customer reviews or testimonials. And then the third thing is to help nudge them or move them toward action, and that is to give them an offer. So give them a reason to go ahead and click through the ad and take advantage now, and try to accelerate the buyer's journey. They may or may not be ready based on where they're at, but you're missing a big opportunity, because a lot of people might be ready if you just gave them the right incentive to take that action. Now, you can also target people not only from visiting the homepage of your website, but also specific pages that they visited. So you can, if they happen to land on a particular service page, your ad should be contextually relevant to why they were on your website in the first place. And if you know that they were on a product or service page, your ad should be about that. The other thing is, if you do have similar services, you can take advantage of that and run remarketing ads, because people maybe were looking at a specific solution or to address a specific problem. If there's a relevant problem that makes sense, then you might want to make your remarketing ad relevant to that. And again, think about, just as we always talked about, you can actually use remarketing as a way to build a funnel and move people through the buyer's journey or the marketing hourglass more effectively.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the buyer's journey and the marketing hourglass. I think it's worthwhile for us to just talk a little bit about that, because that's where retargeting can be super, super powerful. Again, it takes planning and understanding of, what actions will designate somebody as being in a particular part of the hourglass. So just as a reminder to our listeners, the marketing hourglass is really how a framework to understand the buyer's journey, and it's they have to know you first, like you, trust you, to try you, to buy from you, to repeat and refer. And so there are things that you could put into place, different actions on your website or even in a social network, where you can then say, okay, if somebody does this, I want to hit them with, a new message. And you can present that across multiple channels wherever they happen to be. So I think that can be very, very powerful, especially, we talked about the difference between a short sales cycle and a long sales cycle. But, as an example, Jen, I think you've worked with some tech companies, but, oftentimes the immediate need or what draws people in is the tech, the tool, the software that they want to buy. And so they investigate and they do some research, and then they probably want to book a demo, and then they want to, can I try it for a little bit? And then they buy it. But then they're also, you could hit them with, we offer training and we offer support, and there's all sorts of, we can even do an implementation for you in order to get you up and started faster or something like that.
Yeah, that's very good. There's also, I think we forget too, in the long sales cycle, oftentimes part of the reason why it is long is not only typically the financial, the financial price tag that goes along, the need of that product or service, every so often. But there's also usually more than one decision maker. And
Right.
you got to think about that. We, as I guess either the marketing team or the salesperson on this side, don't always get access internally to be able to convince those other influencers or folks that are making the decisions internally. So we have to remember that any kind of checklist or marketing collateral or video or anything like that may actually be the sales tool that your person internally is taking in to convince, his or her boss or his or her finance person. So the better you can equip somebody to just show a one slide, this is what I mean. So anything you can help the person that you're in contact with to do the selling internally for you, it could be very, very helpful. So how that could play out in retargeting is, the checklist or the one slide or the one infographic that explains it all, and that can really sort of act as a sales aid internally. I think that's one thing that that kind of gets missed, and I think you just have to go around. Go around the block once or twice, seeing that, internally something didn't get approved. And then you realize, okay, we got to help our initial contact sell internally as well. So how can we do that? So yeah. I think on retargeting, we have to remember it's not only about the product or the product that goes with the product that you just bought. We could also retarget with additional information as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing with marketing or remarketing, that buyer's journey, that where they are in the sales cycle, that has to be kept in mind, because a lot of it, when you're running, say, Google ads, you're really, not always, but vast majority of the time, you're targeting people at the bottom of the funnel. But just because someone clicks on your ad, that doesn't mean they're at that bottom of the funnel. They were looking for something and saw your ad and clicked on it, and they may be in the process of doing research. And so in retargeting, if you're retargeting someone at the top of the funnel, that ad is going to be different than if you're targeting someone that's gone through there and is ready to buy.
Yeah, very true. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's cool. And I thought Ken did a pretty good job there in that recording. Paul, what platforms can you do retargeting advertising on?
Well, the short answer is all of them, really. But what you have to keep in mind is, where is your ideal customer? Where's your audience? If your audience isn't on Facebook, then remarketing on Facebook isn't going to help you much. But it's also, the remarketing you do has to match that platform. So if you're doing display advertising within Google Ads, you need images, and you need quality images. And no, you should not use stock images, which you see it a lot. It happens. Say same thing on Facebook. If you want to retarget on YouTube, you have to have a video. Obviously, that's what it is. So you have to create that video. So it comes down to where your audience is, what platforms you can create content or pay to have content created for. So I know it's a short answer, but that's pretty much it. You can retarget on all of them. Just keep in mind that you're going to have to create the proper content for those channels, and you have to make sure your audience is on those channels, because if they're not, you're just wasting money.
Yeah. So just so people are aware, so what he means by all of the platforms, you can advertise and retarget on Google's partner network, on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on TikTok. I'm sure I'm missing a few there. There's even broader networks, just ad networks that you can do it on as well. But absolutely. Yeah. If your audience isn't there, why are you advertising that? For sure. Jen, how can a company ensure they don't come across as creepy in the way they retarget?
Creepy. Well, they can do that. I mean, we've alluded to, and we've talked a lot about the value that a retargeting ad can provide, as someone who has purchased a product and here's an add-on product, or here's something that goes with that category that you purchased. That is one way to avoid being creepy, for sure, is to add value in the retargeting ads. So whether it's a product or service that goes along with what you just bought, extra information, a downloadable checklist, something more. But as long as it is of value, that's one of the ways that they can avoid coming across as creepy. The actual feeling of being followed around the internet because of these retargeting ads, I'm not sure how we get away from that feeling, because some people do feel creeped out by that, right? Like the internet knows too much about me. So I'm not sure I have an answer for that kind of feeling, but advertisers can do their very best to make sure that the information within that retargeting ad is as helpful and as valuable as possible.
Yeah, I think people are so accustomed to it now that regular retargeting, where they've done an action, they've explored, they've shown interest in something, whether it's on Amazon or on your website or whatever, and then it just happens that they start to see your ad around. I don't think, just from kind of putting out feelers, I don't think people are as creeped out by that anymore. They used to be. But I think the ones that really bother people are, if you coincidentally happen to be talking about something, and then all of a sudden an ad starts to show up. And there's a lot of anecdotal potential evidence related to this, but all of the advertising platforms say they don't do that. But certainly I've heard about it on Facebook, and I think those are the ones that really, that type of thing, if it's really happening and not coincidence, then that's super creepy, right? Because you haven't shown an action, you haven't expressed an interest.
Yeah, you were just talking about lawnmowers, and now when I check my feed, it's all, yeah, I would agree on that one.
I'm going with it's actually happening.
I knew you would,
But
Paul.
then it doesn't happen to the stuff that you want. So if I'm like very expensive handbags on sale, right? I never get ads for that, right?
or a discount offer. Come on,
Right. Yeah. Come on. Come
Yeah.
on. No, no.
But it doesn't surprise me when, if I buy a product and all of a sudden it's like, there's an ad about the value of warranties or whatever, like that kind of stuff, or aftermarket, you buy a BMW and all of a sudden there's aftermarket BMW stuff popping up. That's not totally surprising to me because we live in such an integrated world today.
Well,
The next question. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
What I find amusing is, with what we do a lot of research. And I'll be researching a topic or going to different websites, and then I'll start seeing ads for those things. It's like, I know why it happens or how it happens, but it's like, I'm never going to buy anything from you. I was just doing some research.
I see that all the time as well. Yeah, especially with SEO, like research or competitive research.
Right. You kind of almost want to say, like, don't waste your ad dollars on me. Like, I'm not buying, right? But
yeah,
say Libby.
Although, for sometimes it's okay because, for some of our clients, it's very competitive marketplace and, windows and door installers or something. And all of a sudden, because we've researched it, all these ads are popping up from the competitors. That's okay. They can spend their money. I'm not one of those that would click on other people's ads, just to make it clear. Unless I want to see for a research reason what happens after I click on the ad, because that could be useful from a competitive marketing standpoint. But
I'm finding out so many things about you guys on this podcast.
I know.
My goodness.
I know.
I thought I knew you.
I thought you were a nice person.
I thought you were, yeah.
All right. The next question is for Ken. We've talked about website visitor retargeting, but there's other types of retargeting. Can you share a bit about these, Mr. Ken?
So one of the great things about remarketing or retargeting is that you actually have several different options. Obviously, a lot of what we've talked about probably is relevant to Google Display Ad Network or other ad networks that you can access through other advertising platforms for remarketing purposes based on activities that people have taken getting to your website, where we do this thing called a pixel, or putting remarketing code on the website so that we can track those visitors' behaviors. But that's the key. You want to take advantage of actions that people are taking. And so one of the things that you want to do is you want to look at how can you leverage social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, for example. You can actually retarget people based on how long they watched a video, or if they clicked through onto a specific link or completed a specific form. You can take that knowledge and recognize that behavior, and then you can also launch a follow-up ad that, maybe the first one was awareness. The next ad could be based on the fact that somebody watched a video 50% of the way through. Now you can run an ad that maybe gets them further down the path to take that offer, to sign up for a free consultation, whatever that try or buy offer might be. That they're already a little bit more warm than the people who first saw your remarketing ad if they take that action. And so you definitely want to take advantage of those. Again, it could be, video is a great way to do it. If people watch video part of the way through based on how far they're doing it. And you can even string these together where, you could have a 3-video series. If people watch the first one, half the way through or all the way through, then you run an ad to get them to the second video, and then you do the same thing to get them to the third video based on their behaviors. And that's another great way to use remarketing and these advertising platforms.
Good points. The one thing that we didn't really talk about from a technical side, like we've talked about the pixel a lot, because that's kind of the technology behind the connection between your website and the platform. But on a lot of the platforms, you can create an action. So if somebody takes a particular action, it could be a button click. Of course, it's pretty easy to set it up for if they visit a particular web page, like a thank you page. So if somebody's bought something or signed up for something and they go to a thank you page, you can then use that information. But a lot of times, people don't use button clicks or some of the other actions related to, I think even in Facebook, you can do like if somebody does a click to call, and I believe you can do that in Google as well, where you can, again, serve up different types of ads, which can be very powerful. But of course, it all comes down to, what's your goal? Is it worth the money to set, this thing up and keep it managed and running? And I think that leads really well into a question for Paul. Is retargeting expensive?
In the long term, no. And what I mean by that, we talked a little bit about it, and you just alluded to it, is that it does take some upfront work to get it set up and working properly. So you're going to have that upfront cost because you do have to set all this retargeting up. You have to create your audiences and allow them to populate, and that takes time. But after that, it's actually one of the most cost-effective ways of advertising, because when you set up a Google Ads campaign, it's a search campaign. You put your headlines, your descriptions, you put your keywords in there, and you launch your campaign. Yes, that's oversimplified. Set your location targeting, but it's pretty simple to do. Optimization is a different subject, but it's pretty simple to get it set up and running. But you're targeting anyone that does a search for the keywords that you're using, whether, and maybe they're interested in buying or not. But with retargeting, you're targeting people that have actually taken an action. And even if it's just clicking on an ad and going to a landing page, and maybe they clicked on something else, or, they have expressed interest. So you're only showing ads to people that have expressed interest, as opposed to a broad audience that may or may not be interested.
Yeah, and depending on how many customers or visitors you have to your website, you could be spending an ad spend on retargeting of $20 to $70. For a lot of local businesses, that's plenty to continuously reach that audience over and over and over again. But if you're, a much larger business, like an e-commerce business, it's obviously going to grow your budget will have to fit the size of your target audience or the audience that's come to your website.
Yeah, that's definitely something that you have to keep. Even though retargeting is less expensive, it still depends on how big is your audience that you're retargeting.
Yeah. And one of the things that came to mind as you were talking, Paul, was there's one of the things I found with any ad campaign, but it's certainly true with retargeting as well, is that the law of diminishing returns is very, very true in any ad campaign and any ad platform. That you could have enormous success in your first 3 weeks to a month, and then you'll see constant. Is that going the right way? Yep. Dropping over time, unless you're constantly changing, optimizing, flexing it to be different. And with retargeting specifically, you don't really have to do a lot of adjustment on the back end of the campaign, because really you're hitting the audience, and as long as it's performing well, the audience that's coming to your website. But where I have found the diminishing returns happening in retargeting is the visuals, because it's a display ad type. Usually retargeting is display ads, and so we see that if you don't change up your visuals, every few months, that you will start to see slippage on your results.
Yeah, people, it's called banner blindness. They see it so often and they just tune it out.
Yeah. Fatigue.
Any last thoughts on this topic, guys?
I have a question for companies that maybe want to get started with this. So would you recommend that they just get started with ad campaigns, just leave retargeting alone until they get very comfortable with their advertising, and then add on retargeting now that they're, they understand how the campaigns work? Or would you suggest, what, do it all at once, get the full meal deal, the full benefit out of this, and go that way? What would you suggest?
You go first, Paul.
Well, with any retargeting, first you have to have an audience. So you have to have that first. Now, how you build that audience that's the question. Do you want to run ads, whether it's on YouTube or Google or Facebook or whatever? If you want to run ads and then set up the retargeting for people that take an action there, or you can build an audience from people that visit your website and don't convert. Back to that, what's a conversion thing? But if you have, let's say you're a painter, house painter, and you have interior painting, you have exterior painting, you have cabinet painting, you can build audiences from people that go to your website and visit those pages. So if someone visit the cabinet painting page, you can build an audience just for those people. And same thing with interior painting or exterior painting. And then you can remarket to those. So you will probably get better results if you combine the two. If you do run an ad campaign and you're sending them to a landing page, but also include in that audience people that go to the website organically, and put all those into one audience and then retarget to them. I don't know if there's a right way or wrong way, but you would probably get better results and quicker results by doing both.
Got it.
Yeah, my answer is very similar to Paul's. If the first step is always to understand what's happening today. So if a company is getting 10 visitors to their website a day, you might want to look at growing your number of visitors. And of course, SEO, paid ads are really the quickest ways. Paid ads is the quickest way to do that. And kind of the back end of that, my answer to that is there cost efficiencies to having a business set up your ad campaign and your retargeting campaign at the same time? Absolutely. So it's way cheaper for a business to have us, or way more cost effective to have a customer of ours to have us build out their advertising campaign and then to attach a retargeting campaign into that account, because we have management fees, for what we're working on. So retargeting can be so small sometimes that the management fee can outsize the actual spend that you're doing on there. So that's why we usually combine the two. You want to grow your number of visitors, and it's more efficient from a costing standpoint. Yeah. Anything else, guys? No.
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap up. Thank you to our virtual Ken, who's traveling right now, to Paul and Jen for sharing your thoughts on this important topic. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. I hope you found this topic valuable. If so, please share and link to it with other businesses who could benefit from it. And until next week, keep calm and market on.